Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and in today's video, I'm going to discuss the cost of bespoke suits from some of London's most prestigious bespoke suit makers. Following up on our 2022 Bespoke Shoe Pricing Roundup, in today's video, I'm going to discuss the pricing of some of London's most prestigious and famous bespoke suit makers. Now, whenever it comes to bespoke suits, there are a few important things to just put out there before we get started. First, in order to compare apples to apples, in today's video, I'm going to focus primarily on London bespoke suit makers with a few exceptions. All of the prices that I will discuss are simply the entry-level prices on a standard two-piece bespoke suit in a standard fabric. Now, of course, a three-piece suit would be more expensive, or if you choose a premium fabric option, that will increase the price of a bespoke suit. So in today's video, just to give you the lay of the land, we're going to focus on two-piece suits. In today's video, we're going to start with some of the most accessible bespoke offers and then gradually work our way up to the top, which is pure Savile Row bespoke suits, which really represents the pinnacle of traditional bespoke suit making. Whenever it comes to suits, there is a broad spectrum with a lot of gray area in between and not a lot of great information. One of the other challenges when going to purchase a suit, especially in the custom range, is just the degree of maybe misinformation out there, even from the makers themselves. So for the purposes of this video, I really want to distinguish what constitutes, in my opinion, a pure bespoke product versus a high-end ready-to-wear and an off-the-rack product. Now, off the rack is as clear as day. If you walk into a store and buy a suit off the rack, put it on your shoulders and walk out, that is a ready-to-wear product. Even if it is from an exceptionally high-end maker like Oxford Clothiers or Kitan or Brioni that have exceptional levels of handwork, because it wasn't made from your measurements with a custom pattern that included fittings, it is a ready-to-wear product. Now, with made to measure, you really get into this gray space between off the rack and what I would consider full bespoke. Now, what constitutes a made to measure product, in my opinion, is the degree of pattern customization. Made to measure product, you're still going to have measurements taken. You might even have fittings, but at the end of the day, those measurements are being inflected or integrated into what is a block pattern. A block pattern is a standard pattern that has already been developed, and maybe the chest is enlarged a little bit to account for a 39.5 versus a 38, or the sleeves are lengthened, or maybe there's a little bit of a drop shoulder, but the degree of customization and adjustments will be much more narrow than what you get with a full bespoke product. Now, moving between made to measure and full bespoke, I think the true divide is that with full bespoke, someone is taking your measurements and then a paper pattern is being drafted by hand that is taking into account all of those nuanced measurements that are unique to you. A bespoke product is truly that bespoke in that it is made just for you based off your measurements. Another important characteristic of bespoke is that there are multiple fittings. So whenever those measurements are taken, it is reflected into the pattern, and then the cloth is cut, it is constructed together. Now, because all cloths respond differently, drape on the body differently, it is really important that, again, for a truly bespoke product, that there is multiple fittings so that the cutter can see how that fabric is responding and how it is draping on your body. And additional adjustments are taken into account to ensure that you have something that truly fits beautifully. So even within true bespoke, there is a spectrum with a lot of nuanced details in terms of the amount of handwork, the amount of adjustments, whether or not that cutter is there at every single one of the fittings. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the various different makers. Now, one of the most accessible bespoke offerings out there that I've come across is my good friend Divij Himmerjani at Divij Bespoke. Now this really is at that kind of point where you go from made to measure to bespoke. Now Divij's bespoke product starts at $2,100. That includes a fitting garment. And again, it constitutes bespoke because although Divij is not a cutter, he's taking your measurements, he's sending that back to their workshop, and a true tailor, master tailor, is taking those measurements and drafting a paper pattern just for you. The degree of nuanced adjustments that they are able to take into account is much greater than a made-to-measure product where those measurements are just going through a computer and spitting out an adjusted block pattern. And the other thing I like about Divij's offer is that for, again, $2,100, which is very accessible, it includes a fitting garment. So before they actually cut the fabric that your suit is going to be made out of, they will cut it out of a muslin that allows them, again, to further validate that pattern is fitting you as well as possible. Now, all of his suits include an additional fitting of the actual garment where adjustments can be taken into account, but generally speaking, there is only that one additional fitting. But once you move past that basted garment, at most there is one fitting, and depending on how well your pattern is fitting, they might even move straight to finish without doing a fitting at all. So that to me would represent kind of the most accessible bespoke entry point, but for $2,100, as we'll see here, it is actually a very competitive offer, especially considering the amount of handwork that goes into the patterns, the fact that Divij is very talented at what he does. And a good deal of my wardrobe is in fact from Divij Bespoke because of that degree of accessibility. Next, I want to talk about two bespoke makers that are available here in America. These are bespoke tailoring houses that are really based here. Now, today, you don't have as many bespoke tailors in America as you did 10, 15, 20 years ago because a lot of those older Italian tailors that came to America just have simply retired and aren't making anymore. But in New York, you can still find bona fide bespoke tailors, and there's two that I want to discuss. First being Eric Jensen at Sartoria Gallo. Eric is someone that we have featured on this channel extensively. In his bespoke product, which is a true bespoke product, he's taking your measurements, he's drafting your pattern, and then that pattern is being sent to Italy, where it is being made at the Sartoria Gallo workshop in Rome. And then the fitting garment is sent back to New York, where you go see Eric Jensen. He does the fittings, adjusts the pattern, sends it back, and then it's made in Rome at the Sartoria Gallo workshop. His bespoke suits start right at $5,000, which is a very competitive price, especially whenever you consider the fact that Eric is based here in New York and is much more accessible than a lot of the traveling tailors. All of the work, as I said, is completely by hand, being done at the Sartoria Gallo workshop in Rome, and has that provenance of a proper Italian bespoke garment. In New York, you also have Leonard Logsdail. He is someone that is certainly very well known, exceptionally talented. He is a true bespoke tailor doing work at the highest level, taking your measurements, hand drafting that pattern, and then having that garment made. He is sending his garments off to London to be made, so it is a British bespoke product, but he's based in New York and travels quite extensively. His bespoke suits start at $8,500. Now again, being based in America, Leonard Logsdail travels quite extensively, and the cities that he visits are Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Palm Beach, San Francisco, Sonoma, Jackson Hole, and Atlanta, and he travels to those cities 3 or 4 times a year. Of course, you can visit his website to see his full travel itinerary, and Leonard also has an excellent Instagram that allows you to see his work and also stay in touch with him. So Leonard Logsdail was trained properly in England. His suits are made in England, and for all intents and purposes, it is an English-made product with the added benefit of course, Leonard being based in New York and being very accessible to American clients. It is an exceptional product and certainly represents bespoke at the highest level. Now, the difference between Leonard Logsdail and Eric Jensen at Sartoria Gallo would be one is a British product and the other one is an Italian product. And so that just comes down to personal preference between their different styles. So next, let's jump the pond over to England, which is the historic home of proper tailoring. Of course, you'll find more bespoke tailors in England than probably anywhere else on earth, and there's no question that they are doing absolutely fabulous work at the highest level. Now first, let's start off with someone that is no stranger to this channel. That is Tom Mahone at Redmayne. Redmayne is actually based in Cumbria, and Tom travels to London, and he also travels to the United States quite extensively several times a year. Now Tom's product starts at £3,329. This is an ex-VAT price, or about $4,500 US. Now Tom, of course, was trained at Anderson & Sheppard, helped start Steed Bespoke, and now is at Redmayne, really carrying the tradition of that great firm forward. Redmayne has actually been around for almost 100 years, and although not based in London, is certainly one of Britain's historic tailoring houses. Now another interesting detail about Redmayne is that they actually have a very unique service called their suit copying service. This is a service whereby you can send them a suit that you already like and that fits well, and they will measure it out and copy that garment as precisely as possible. Now for someone that isn't able to travel to meet with Tom or already has something that he thinks fits great, you can send that suit to Tom, and for £1,200 they will copy it for you. So it's a unique offer, and what's interesting about this is that Redmayne has actually offered this service since 1933. So in many ways you would think that this is a modern kind of response to just the world that we live in, but in fact Redmayne has been offering their suit copying service almost since the firm was founded, pushing 100 years. So it's an interesting option. It's certainly less expensive than full bespoke. It includes a similar level of handwork and construction, but doesn't include that bespoke pattern making process and doesn't include those bespoke fittings. So next, let's move to London, Kent Haste and Lacter. Kent Haste and Lacter is located on Sackville Street, which is really right in between Piccadilly Street and Savile Row, so very close to that ancestral home of bespoke tailoring, which is Savile Row. Now, what I like about Terry Haste and John Kent, which are the bespoke suit makers, is that they are exceptionally experienced and well-known. And one of the ways that I was actually introduced to Kent Haste and Lacter is that many of my friends in London that I would consider amongst the best dressed that I know, many of them use Kent Haste and Lacter, and they have a very, very strong reputation. Now, their bespoke garments start at £3,500, which is approximately $4,700, right under $5,000, which is a considerable bargain considering just how well regarded they are and the quality and caliber of their suits. Now, what's nice is that they do travel to New York, and so that if you're not able to actually visit them in London, you can still travel or fly to meet them in New York, where they travel to a few times a year. You can see all of their travel dates on their website, and we are actually in the middle of a series of filming both Terry Haste and John Kent, each making suits for me. So if these are gentlemen that you're interested in learning more about, of course, take a look at our library of videos on this YouTube channel. One of the other interesting points of distinction for Kent Haste and Lacter is that John Kent was actually the late Duke of Edinburgh's tailor for most of his adult life, I think pushing 50 years, and they continue to hold his royal warrant. And so, again, that is just something that really speaks to the history and the provenance of this particular firm. Next, we have Steed Savile Row. Now Steed actually was founded in Cumbria, and a lot of their garments are still made in Cumbria. It is a full bespoke product starting at £3,700 ex-VAT, or about $5,000. One of the other benefits of Steed is that they travel quite extensively to the United States, 4 times a year in fact, and they're traveling to New York, Dallas, Houston, Beverly Hills, San Francisco, Chicago, DC, Boston, Palm Beach, and Philadelphia. Of course, their full travel itinerary can be found on their website. So Steed was actually founded in 1995 by Edwin Dubois and Tom Mahone, and they both came from Anderson & Sheppard. So Steed's house style was derived from Anderson and Sheppard, but more so from Frederick Schulte, who as a tailor really invented or innovated the use of that single piece panel on the front, high armholes, and soft natural shoulders that are slightly extended. So Steed doesn't put any cuts into their canvas to build the chest or anything else, and it's all cut on the bias for that soft drape look. So Steed's clients really come to them either for that iconic drape cut, but they're also able to cut slightly leaner through the chest if that is something the client desires. So up next we have Stephen Hitchcock. Now, Stephen's father, John, was the head cutter and managing director for the last 10 years, only having recently retired a few years ago. And Stephen actually trained at Anderson and Sheppard, so he is cutting his bespoke garments in that traditional drape cut. Now, he has updated his cut a little bit to include a slightly trimmer body because he's added a side panel that allows him to, again, trim that garment a little bit more and to give it a little bit more shape. And we actually have a video with Stephen on this channel where he talks through the art and science of how he cuts his garments. So if you're looking to learn more about Stephen Hitchcock's house style, make sure you check out this video. His suits start out at 4,200 pounds or about $5,500, $5,600 depending on exchange rates. Stephen, of course, is based in London, but he travels to the United States also a few times a year, and he generally is traveling to New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. So those are the three cities here in America that he hits consistently. And for his travel itinerary, of course, you can find that on his website or on his Instagram profile. Next, we have Edward Sexton. Of course, Edward Sexton worked with Tommy Nutter in the 1970s and is very closely associated with that updated kind of British aesthetic. And so a piece from Edward Sexton is going to be slightly edgier, broader shoulders, more shape throughout the body itself, but again, doing bespoke work at the absolute highest level. Their bespoke suits start at 5,000 pounds ex-VAT, or about $6,750. They travel to the United States along with the London Collective, which is a group of British artisans that travel together. And they travel to Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and New York. All of those dates can be found on collective.london or on Edward Sexton's website. One of the other interesting points about Edward Sexton is that they do have an offshore bespoke product that starts off at 2,290 pounds. Now this isn't made in England, but if you're looking for a slightly more accessible product to get into bespoke, they do offer that offshore product. So this group of tailors that I just discussed, of course, are based in England, or more specifically London, but aren't located on Savile Row. Now, Savile Row is kind of a dividing line, if you will. There is an additional degree of prestige and heritage associated with firms based on Savile Row. Now, this next firm I'm going to discuss is a very interesting firm that is doing a very unique product off of Savile Row, and that is Chittleborough Morgan. Now, Joe Morgan trained with Tommy Nutter in the 1970s, and so has a slightly more fashion-forward aesthetic to his suits, but is doing absolutely superb work that really is mesmerizing. Now, what I like about Joe Morgan and the way that he approaches his work is that it's very innovative. It is still classically and quintessentially British, but he knows just how to push the boundaries if you're looking for something slightly more interesting. Now, all of his work is cut and made on premises on Savile Row, so it has all of the provenance of a bespoke garment made on Savile Row. And because his garments are 100% cut and made on site, it just allows him a degree of oversight and control that really ensures that the quality is delivered at the absolute highest level. One of the other things that I like about Joe, and I could talk about him at great length, is the degree of artistry he brings to his trade. If you look at the canvassing that he does, they actually go to the great lengths to actually sew or pad stitch in very unique designs into the canvas of the garment itself. I've never seen anything like this, and I don't know of anyone else on Savile Row or even London doing work like this. This is work that is never going to be seen outside of that construction or fitting process, and just allows a degree of personalization to the garment that only the person who made the garment and the person who commissioned the garment will ever know exists. So again, exceptionally unique, exceptionally interesting, and his work I really do admire because it is just so inspired. So next we have a really interesting and prestigious group of tailors that are located on Savile Row. And this is something that I would call pure Savile Row Bespoke. While pure Bespoke is not exclusive to Savile Row or even London, these heritage tailors are the standard bearers of a tailoring tradition that encompasses the essence of what bespoke tailoring and its legacy has become to represent in its purest and its most unadulterated form. Pure Savile Row Bespoke is really then the highest, most traditional representation of the bespoke process and product. These heritage firms, which have been in business for generations, are located on Savile Row, and their garments are drafted, cut, and constructed 100% on the firm's on-site premises. This allows total control over house style, training and development of tailors, quality control, and client service and experience from start to finish. In addition, as the de facto standard bearers of the trade, these firms traditionally take on the leading roles developing and training apprentices, which is essential for the overall long-term health of the trade itself. As such, these firms have come to be known as some of the most prestigious of the London bespoke tailoring houses, and as such, their product and their prices are at the top of our list. Of course, this isn't to say these other firms I just discussed don't do incredible work, and they certainly do, but these four firms I'm about to discuss occupy a special place within the pantheon of bespoke tailors operating at the absolute pinnacle of the craft. Now, at this highest level of what I would call pure Savile Row Bespoke, we're looking at between $6,000 and $9,000 for the garment. Now, it is certainly a lot of money, but taken into the context of the amount of work, 60 to 100 hours that goes into the creation of a bespoke garment, the fact that these firms have existed for generations, they travel extensively, and offer a level of service at the highest level, it really is certainly well justified. At this level, the only thing that really differentiates one firm from the other really comes down to house style, and each of these four firms I'm about to discuss really do manifest a very unique and distinct house style from one another. Now, I'm going to start with one of the most famous, of course, that many people know, we've already discussed, and that is Anderson and Sheppard. Now, Anderson and Sheppard isn't technically located on Savile Row anymore. They've moved one street over to Old Burlington Street, but according to the Savile Row Bespoke Association, as long as you're within 900 meters of Savile Row, you can still say that you make a Savile Row garment. And Anderson and Sheppard is particularly famous for having really invented that drape cut that is so iconic. So Anderson and Sheppard's bespoke pricing starts out at 4,500 pounds ex-VAT, or about $6,000 US. Their bespoke premises is located at 32 Old Burlington Street and is an absolutely marvelous place. We actually stepped inside Anderson and Sheppard to talk a little bit with them about their house styles in our Savile Row walking tour video. So if you're interested in hearing them explain their house style for themselves, make sure you check out that video. It is an absolutely marvelous firm doing beautiful work, and it is very distinct and easy to identify because, again, of that iconic drape cut. Anderson and Sheppard does travel to the United States quite regularly, and their full itinerary can be found on their website, but generally they're traveling to San Francisco, DC, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Chicago. They have an Instagram account that allows you to see more of their work, and interestingly enough, they also have a haberdashery located on Clifford Street. The haberdashery has an incredible collection of casual accessories, and if you're in London, their haberdashery is well worth a trip out of your way to go visit. Up next, we have Dege Skinner. Another heritage Savile Row bespoke tailoring house doing pure Savile Row bespoke work. All of their garments are 100% cut on-site and constructed on-site, allowing them total and absolute control over the entire process. Their garments start out at 4,750 pounds ex-VAT, or about $6,500. This April, Dege Skinner will be traveling to Washington, D.C., Middleborough, and Philadelphia. But for their full travel itinerary, make sure you check out their website. Up next, we have Huntsman. Now Huntsman, again, based on Savile Row. One of the things that makes Huntsman particularly unique is that in addition to their historic presence on Savile Row, recently they have opened a New York-based cutting room with 2 full-time bespoke cutters that were trained at Huntsman in London. Ralph Fitzgerald, their US-based cutter, is exceptionally talented, and he is someone, alongside Ed Turco, their US director, we filmed an entire piece with about their New York cutting room, and it really is quite exceptional degree of service that they're now able to offer. So Huntsman has 2 prices. They've got their British pound price, which is only available to customers that are going through the entire bespoke process in London on their Savile Row premises. And their bespoke garments start at 5,200 pounds ex-VAT in London. Now for their US-based clients, their bespoke prices start at $9,500. And this, of course, is taking into account the fact that they've got this New York-based cutting room that is able to offer a phenomenal level of service to their US-based clients. Now Huntsman travels extensively here in the United States. I couldn't even list all the cities and dates that they travel to, again, because they have this dedicated US team. But in the next few months, they're traveling to Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Francisco, LA, DC, Boston, and really a ton more cities than that. I would refer you back to their website for their full travel itinerary. So all of Huntsman's US-based clients are having their measurements taken by Ralph Fitzgerald, which is their US-based cutter. Ralph then drafts and cuts the pattern in New York at their cutting room. The garments are then sent to London, where they are made on premises at their Savile Row-based workshop. And last and not least, we have Henry Poole. Which in many ways is considered the father of London Savile Row tailoring. They were the first tailoring house in London to set up shop on Savile Row and have been there ever since. Henry Poole is doing pure bespoke at the highest level. Again, 100% of their garments are cut on their premises on Savile Row and then made in the basement on Savile Row, giving their team total and absolute control. Now, Henry Poole has an absolutely beautiful house style, and I'm excited to say that we're actually in the middle of a piece right now with Henry Poole exploring the totality of their work. Their bespoke garments are priced at 5,500 pounds, and Henry Poole does travel extensively to the United States, visiting Jupiter Island, Palm Beach, New York, Boston, D.C., L.A., Seattle, San Francisco, Atlanta, and New Orleans. And of course, if you're in London, you can always go visit their absolutely beautiful showroom on Savile Row. So there we have it. That's our 2022 Bespoke Pricing Roundup. Of course, this is in no way an exhaustive list. There are people that we've left out. Feel free to mention them in the comments section below on this video. We didn't even touch on the French or Parisian bespoke makers or the Italian ones. I mean, again, whenever it comes to bespoke garments, there's just so many people out there doing absolutely exceptional work. Now, there's no question that a bespoke garment is expensive. It is a luxury item, but whenever it comes to having something made by hand, the bespoke garment is really so beautiful. When you think that today you can have a garment measured, made by hand, the same way that these garments have been made for over 100 years just for you, to me is really something exceptional. And it was that nostalgia, that romance that really got me into this to begin with. The work is absolutely incredible, especially when you consider that you have artisans that are dedicating their entire lives to the craft, and that 60 to 100 hours go into the creation of a bespoke garment. Now, there's a little bit of a misplaced emphasis on the product. Of course, the product is incredible. Now, all of the handwork that goes into these garments aren't there for the sake of handwork or embellishment. The handwork really creates a durability to the garment that ensures that it's going to maintain its shape and it's going to look good regardless of how the garment is treated. There really is a profound durability to bespoke garments. The other benefit, of course, of a bespoke garment is that they're generally cut with large inlays, which means that you can wear it throughout your life, and if it needs to be let out or taken in, the garment can be taken back to the bespoke maker that made that garment, and they will alter it. In my opinion, one of the most important aspects of the bespoke process is the process itself. That through multiple fittings and the commission of multiple garments across years, you're able to build meaningful and rich relationships with these absolutely talented makers. I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, if you haven't visited KirbyAllison.com, please do so. It's the best way to support this channel. And there you'll find the largest collection of luxury garment care and luxury shoe care accessories in the world, as well as other great clothing accessories for the well-dressed, like this beautiful sovereign grade basket weave tie I'm wearing today, pocket squares, braces, socks, collar stays, fragrances, shave creams, and so much, much more. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel membership, please do so. It's another way to support this channel, in addition to our Patreon. 100% of the proceeds from our YouTube channel memberships and Patreon will support our ability to travel and explore the world of quality craftsmanship and tradition. Of course, I'm Kirby Allison, and I love to help the well-dressed acquire and care for their wardrobes while exploring the world of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. Thanks for watching.